Good evening and welcome to the show. Just 24 hours ahead of BBC One's big Test the Nation IQ theme night. And here for anyone wanting to cheat are the answers to question 1, question 2 and question 3. In the news this week, unprecedented scenes in the House of Commons tea room as the rivalry between Tony Blair and Gordon Brown threatens to get out of hand. In Nigeria, the footballer who spent 3 hours trapped in a tumble dryer denies it's affected his game. And TV producers regret deciding to hold auditions for the second series of Pop Idol in Eastbourne. On Ian Hislop's team, a journalist and TV presenter who recently revealed that his first job was working for a telephone chat line, so if you recognise his voice, probably best keep it to yourself, Matthew Wright. And with Paul Merton tonight, a radical comedian and activist who was arrested in Brixton for stealing a pair of shoes, which led to the celebrated campaign to free the Dulcis One, Mark Steele. Round 1 allows the major burning issues of the day to be neatly sidestepped in favour of stories like these. Paul and Mark.
Right, it's Prince Charles, and that's where he lives. There's Prince Andrew, as he likes to be called, and there's the Queen on the bus.
Presumably this is because it's been revealed that the Queen Mother isn't going to have to pay any tax.
She's
we're
dead,
queuing up.
So
yeah, well, they always find a loophole.
Yeah. And how much is she supposed to, or is the Queen supposed to?
80 million.
Yeah.
50 million.
50 million is what the estate's worth, and they're going to save 20
but
million.
But that's before you deduct the William Hill account.
There's going to be a statue of her, of course. Who's going to be paying for that?
You are.
Yeah. And you
that was
as
part
well,
of the will.
Yeah.
Are we paying for it as
you
well?
are as well, and indeed every viewer watching this programme.
Where's the statue going to be?
In the Mall, or the Mall, which runs Porrelall to the Strand.
But I'd like to know, where did they get all these blokes from, these sort of Cockney blokes, who I don't think were real people, that come out and did all that? Oh, I'll never forget in the Blitz, the doodlebug come through the house. The whole street was demolished. We were all killed except for me. My leg was shorn off, and then I looked up and there was the Queen Mother, and do you know, that was the happiest moment of my life. And these stupid people who queued up. Oh, she was marvellous. I'm an old age pensioner from Doncaster and I couldn't afford the train fare. I've had to go on game for a week.
There's nothing like a socialist to get someone who really despises the working class.
So the reshuffle of royal homes this is about. Who's moving where?
Well, Prince Andrew is moving to where Prince Charles is, and Prince Charles is moving to Prince Andrew. Then Prince Charles is going to move to where Prince Andrew was, and Prince Andrew is going to move to where Prince Charles was, so they'll end up with the same house.
What has the Queen been up to this week?
She's got a job with London Transport.
She's
been on the train?
Yes.
She's gone to Devon.
Newcastle. And what surprised her particularly?
Streaker. There was a streaker running alongside the car.
Yeah.
Waving at her.
With Rude Britannia written on his backside, something, again, you may only catch in tabloid newspapers. Well, I like to keep abreast.
Or, indeed, on this programme.
Wouldn't it be great if, when he stood up, that gate came with it? That'd be marvellous.
This is the reshuffle of royal palaces following the death of the Queen Mother. According to the Sunday Times, as part of the arrangements, Prince Charles gets Burke Hall, while Edward gets something sounding remarkably similar. At the moment, both Clarence House and Kensington Palace remain vacant. In a recent survey, the public said they'd like to see Charles and Camilla installed in Clarence House and Edward and Sophie installed in the council flat in Toxteth. Ian and Matthew, your expensive gag.
Ah, that's Mr. Stephen Lyers.
Mr. Sixsmith.
Mr. Sixsmith. I'm glad I pronounced his name right.
His payoff. Lovely, lovely, lovely money. Oh, and
the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Well, she is getting into the car.
Well, you spotted the main protagonists there. What have they been up to?
Well, Mr. Byers has been having a bad time in the Commons. He's been accused by a lot of people of lying, which is fairly serious. And obviously there's a certain amount of evidence to suggest that might be quite a reasonable accusation.
Right.
But I don't want to go the whole hog, because it'll be cut out.
Well, we can always pin it on someone else. The Daily Telegraph, for example, called him a liar unfit for office.
Yep.
And it said in the rule book, the parliamentary rule book, that if you do make a mistake and mislead Parliament, you should apologise for it as quickly as possible. So when he was saying Sixsmith had resigned, and he hadn't, he'd been sacked, that would be misleading Parliament, wouldn't it? And therefore you'd expect that he would apologise for that.
Yes, but he is a Labour politician.
And a cabinet minister.
So the idea of him apologising is frankly ludicrous.
Well,
Sixsmith gets 200 grand.
For keeping quiet. So it is, it's essentially hush money.
effectively, and whose money is it?
It's the taxpayers' money.
Yes.
Our money.
It's the bit left over from making Railtrack such a great organisation.
We don't need Stephen Byers at all anyway, of course, because Cherie Blair can do it on her own, single-handedly, without being elected or indeed...
yes, what was she up to this
Is
week?
that the link, that she ran a seminar on transport?
She did, yes.
She does have a certain expertise in transport matters. If you remember, she was stopped for not having a ticket.
So how's Stephen Byers explained himself away this week?
It's all down to good faith.
That was what Blair said, yes. He said it in good faith, but although
Well, he
Byers...
just blamed his officials, which is a classic ministerial policy.
An incorrect understanding was his expression.
Is this the old terminological inexactitude coming out again?
I think it's a not dissimilar expression.
Economic with the actualité. He's been humiliated in the House of Commons, he's proved to be incompetent. Why should he resign?
This is Transport Secretary Stephen Byers' payment of £200,000 of taxpayers' money to former spokesman Martin Sixsmith in return for his silence. According to The Sun, Mr Byers' credibility is now in tatters. Interesting use of the word now. According to The Guardian, Mrs Blair is said to be politically slightly to the left of her husband, as indeed are half the BNP, Jean-Marie Le Pen, and that Dutch bloke who got shot. Paul and Mark, bit of a result for you.
This is the Hartlepool monkey that stood for mayor. And as soon as he became the mayor, he said, I'm going to be serious, I'm no more monkey.
And he also promised a free banana to every school child in Hartlepool, and now he's saying, well, no, it's got to be costed. I think he probably had a conference with himself where he said, from now on, I am new monkey.
Yeah. This bloke's done a U-turn in the space of minutes.
And at least sell out stage by stage, maybe be a chimpanzee.
Yeah. And leave the head off.
What was his name?
Angus.
Oh, the name of the monkey or the man?
Of the monkey.
Angus.
Angus.
For what reason?
Because all really anybody knows about Hartlepool very much, a very sad thing, is that in the Napoleonic Wars, when the French people were depicted as monkeys, a boat arrived in Hartlepool, shipwrecked, nobody on it at all, except for a monkey. So the good people of Hartlepool thought the monkey was a French spy, and they hung it. And this is all anybody knows about Hartlepool, especially in the North East. That's what they all call Hartlepool people, monkey hangers, which is very sad. I think whatever happens, there could be some... guy from Hartlepool could come out with a cure for all known diseases, and he'd be halfway through the press conference describing it, and then someone would get up and go, "You hung that monkey, you thick twat!"
And now they've shed this image by voting one in.
Yes. Of course, this has nothing to do with a certain play called The Dead Monkey, Matthew.
Ah, interesting you should bring that up.
Yes, which was a play that you once reviewed, I think, and rubbished.
Without
roundly.
going. Without going. It's a
Without even
brilliant
going to
new
play.
skill I developed.
Right. How much did you get sued?
Well, we settled out of court on that one.
Just for the £200,000, I gather.
Oh, no.
A Sixsmith, eh?
Damages. Didn't you describe it as the worst West End show you'd ever seen?
Yes.
Right.
And you hadn't seen it?
I hadn't seen it.
Do you feel embarrassed by the reference to lies in the previous round?
Not at all.
So what other candidates past caught up with them this week in the mayoral election? There's a Lib Dem candidate in West Yorkshire
Who'd been on the Keith Chegwin nude show.
Helen Swain's her name, here we are.
They've all got rather unfortunate afflictions, haven't they? Is this near a rifle range? Is that Edward Heath at the end?
He did the pilot.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, this is the unusual results in the local elections. Angus the monkey was elected mayor of Hartlepool, the town which has Peter Mandelson as its MP, so now they've got the monkey and the organ grinder. One disgruntled BNP voter in Lancashire complained that the Asians get nice housing and floodlit football pitches. We get jack shit. Bit unkind to Mr. Straw, but there we are. And finally in this round, Ian and Matthew.
Tessa Jowell, throwing sweets at people.
Alan Titchmarsh. No, smiley, smiley, Carol, smiley. And Rupert, my future new boss. Good day, mate.
Give me 5, that's Rupert's slogan.
There's too many makeover shows and gardening shows on telly.
According to?
Tessa Jowell, our culture secretary. And yet, curiously, neither myself nor anyone I know has yet had either their garden or their house done over for free by the BBC yet. But I am living in hope.
Yes.
And until that moment comes, I don't think there are enough makeover shows on the BBC.
And what other things has she been complaining about on TV?
There's not enough foreigners owning our television stations.
In particular, which
Well, there's a
station?
few sub-clauses. They've got to be called Rupert, and their second name's got to be Murdoch.
Right.
They must also own The Sun and support Blair at elections.
Right.
Of course.
But if those conditions are met, then Rupert gets Channel 5.
And are you concerned that Rupert might drag Channel 5 down market?
This was Tessa Jowell, and the thing I liked about this, for your future boss, obviously it's great, but she said she'd made these decisions in the interests of diversity and choice. So the same person owns all the media, and that gives us a better choice.
Yes. And what's the new regulatory body going to be called that she's talking about?
News International.
Ofcom. And someone's been complaining about sex on TV this week. Did you read about this?
Not enough of it?
Not enough of it? Yes, Richard Madeley.
Oh, yeah.
So
He
there
doesn't see
wasn't
enough
enough.
pricks on telly, and yet every time I turn on Channel 4 between 5 and 6, I see at least 2 of them.
It is the government's proposed shake-up of the television industry and its plan to control viewing standards. According to The Observer, Tessa Jowell is proposing that for the first time the BBC may face financial sanctions if it fails to uphold standards of taste and decency. We can shove that idea right up her arse. So at the end of that round, the scores are like a council election with an extremely high turnout, both sides managing 4. We hold our noses, take a deep breath and enter the world of tabloid journalism, illustrated amply by a couple of finely honed headlines, such as Ian and Matthew. Queen sits on top of pole.
Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, is the greatest song of all time, according to the British Book of Hit Singles.
Yes, this is the top 20. There you are, Bohemian Rhapsody sitting on top. Would you disagree or agree with most of those?
Who did they ask?
31,000 fans.
From what ages?
Oh, I think they range from, 60 to 65. And why is the timing suspicious of this?
But they've got a musical.
Yes, Roger Taylor, Brian May, yes.
Yes.
This is written by Ben Elton, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, partially. He's written the book.
And who's written the music?
Well, Queen.
Queen. Have you been invited to the premiere?
I haven't.
Oh, dear. You've been invited to the premiere, Paul?
What?
We're talking about the Queen musical over here.
Have you taken leave of your senses?
Is this a way of telling the audience that you have?
Oh, yes.
And the sad
very
thing
much
is,
so.
you'll go.
Yes.
You're not seriously going to go and see it, are you?
I might do, if I'm not doing anything else.
If anyone's got an envelope, he will open it.
So, do we know anything about this play, about the musical, rather?
It's set in the future where all pop is manufactured. And luckily there are some real rock rebels. And this sort of saves the world. Is that the end of the plot?
I think that our hero has to find the mighty axe of the great and hairy god.
Can I have a ticket? Sounds quite good.
Does it?
Well, you don't need a ticket. You can review it without going.
There's another bizarre top 10 published this week. All-time role models for children. They've done a survey of. And this is the top 10. Numbers 1, 2 and 3, relatively unsurprising.
What, children everywhere decided to be very small?
Yes, go on, kids, evade more tax. You must have hero worshipped someone. Didn't you have pictures of someone on the wall?
I don't think I did, but tell me. I'd love to know, who did I have pictures on the wall of?
Oh, you must have, come on.
You don't know, do you?
Well, I didn't live in your bedroom, no.
The offer was there.
Over to Matthew. He wasn't there either.
No. Loads of heroes, though.
Yes. Yours, Ian. Clive of India, or...?
General Napier. I had him
Right.
up for a while. Got bored of him, pulled him down. Did they really ask children?
Well, it's asking adults who they
Who they...
emulated when they were a child, yes.
How can you emulate Neil Armstrong? How can you get to number 9? You've got to the moon.
You can walk slowly downstairs.
So what about you? What pictures did you have on the wall?
George Best, Bobby Charlton, Dennis Law,
And what was...
Olivia Newton-John.
So was this in her Grease sort of mode?
Oh, no, but when she used to appear on Cliff Richard shows.
Oh, right. Sort of quite apple pie, sort of hair in
That's
curls.
right, yeah. Sort of layers.
Layers. A little misty look came in your eye then. Did you used to kiss it?
Did I kiss the poster?
Yeah.
I wasn't that sad, Paul, no.
I bet you did.
No.
You sort of say, excuse me, George, I won't be a moment. Dennis, Bobby, I'll be with you in a sec.
Where were we? Oh, yes, a quiz. This is the poll by the Guinness Book of Hit Singles to find the top 100 songs of all time, which put Jimi Hendrix 68 places behind Steps. Luckily for Jimmy, that's well out of earshot. Next week sees the opening of the new Queen musical, the plot of which, according to its own publicity, concerns our hero Galileo, leader of the Bohemians, and the attempt by the Gaga cops to drag him before the killer Queen and exile him to the 7 seas of Rye. Oh, well, another one bites the dust. Paul and Mark, your loaded revolver. Tourists at 12 o'clock.
Lufthansa.
It is Lufthansa, yes, that's part of the answer.
They've hired a plane. Tourists can fly over London.
Junkers.
Well, if you're going to take that attitude, I can go...
It's the name of the plane.
Is the name of the plane Junkers?
Junkers, yeah. And why is this plane over here? What's it celebrating?
The Blitz.
Yeah. No, Lufthansa is 75 years old.
So they're celebrating by reminding us of the war.
It wasn't a great success for Germany, really.
They came second.
Yeah. Didn't go according to plan, did it, really?
No. What other famous symbol of World War II is now a tourist attraction, we gather?
Hitler. He runs a delicatessen in Cardiff.
He's 100.
Colditz Castle is the answer.
Oh, that's been a tourist attraction for years.
Where it's now going to become a youth hostel.
Is it? Is it? But you're at the table tennis tournament is over.
This is the Luftwaffe plane, which will soon be flying tourists over London.
Did you say it was a Luftwaffe plane?
Yeah, former Luftwaffe plane.
Former? I thought they'd reformed. They didn't have any armed forces for a long time, Germany. They weren't allowed them.
Do you disapprove of the fact that they do now?
Providing it's fairly limited. 2 or 3 people in berets.
OK.
So this is it, isn't it? One plane that's allowed to go over London.
I
Yeah,
still find that
exactly.
frightening.
They've got one plane already, they're flying over London. When will these people learn? Can we have a plane? Can we have a... Oh, yeah, give them one plane, give them one plane. Right, we're flying to London!
The German plane is over 60 years old, has 3 engines and only space for 16 people. Conditions EasyJet passengers can only dream of. There's been a rush amongst war veterans to buy places on the nostalgic trip, although there was one unfortunate moment when one former RAF pilot went in to get the last ticket, only to be told, I'm afraid, Ginger's bought it. Which unnecessary flack means at the end of this onslaught, it's, well, both teams seem equally unadventurous, neither daring to progress further than 6. Round 3 means only one thing, obviously, and it's also our odd one out round. Paul and Mark, your performing royalties are Madonna, the Queen, Marco Pierre White and Congleton Rugby Club.
Well, Congleton Rugby Club is obviously the place where the dear Anne Winterton went and told a joke that got herself the sack, which is quite a state the Tories have got in, isn't it, now, whereby they're too outrageous and right-wing for northern rugby clubs. Presumably this rugby club's had a meeting now and gone, well, she was just over. I mean, next year we're going back to normal. Strippers, drinking contests and lighting her own farts, but no Tories.
Now, Madonna was... Bernard Manning appeared in front of Madonna, didn't he, in the last sort of 6 or 7 months?
He did, yes.
And was sort of, you know, telling his racist jokes. Marco Pierre White, I can imagine that he was probably sitting in the audience and there was somebody probably telling anti-French jokes, and the Queen doesn't have to go out to see people making racist remarks because she married him. Which makes her the odd one out.
Yes, it's an excellent answer, but not quite right. The answer is that they've all booked Bernard Manning.
The Queen has booked Bernard Manning?
Well, effectively, for the Royal Command performance, yes, in 1972.
Well,
No, the Queen hasn't booked the Royal Command performance.
Just sit in the office. Who have we got this year?
She has to approve them.
I'm sorry, if we can't have Keith Harris, the whole thing's off. What nonsense.
Yes, she...
You think she prints the stamps?
Surely.
Dear, oh dear.
So Madonna, yes, booked Bernard Manning for...
She didn't book Bernard Manning, did she?
Oh, we're going to have this for hours.
Well, it was her husband's birthday party.
And so Madonna said, listen, don't worry, I'll book it. Now, I've been in America for 30 years, who's like Bernard Manning?
So the answer is they've all booked Bernard Manning to perform for them, apart from Congleton Rugby Club, who were treated to the racist humour Van Winterton, the Tory MP for Nuremberg South. Ian Duncan-Smith moved swiftly to sack Mrs Winterton from his shadow cabinet, but should have no trouble replacing her. After all, racist Tories are 10 a penny. Ian and Matthew, your men of the moment are Jean-Marie Le Pen, Richard Branson, Gavin Davies and Lulu.
Lulu seems to have turned into a Hindu goddess. Is this the lottery?
Would you like to explain?
Well, Richard Branson wanted to run the lottery, and Lulu used to front the lottery, did she?
Not as far as I can remember, but you can carry on down the
She's introduced the National Lottery show, yes, on BBC.
Right, thanks, Matthew.
I should have foreseen that one.
Thanks for your help, showbiz correspondent.
slipped
Useful
up
having you on. Is it the lottery? Are we going down the right lines here?
Interestingly not, no.
Have they all booked Bernard Manning? In the sense they've all watched television when he was on, which is the same as booking him.
Oddly enough, not.
Le Pen made his money out of tapes of German marching songs. Branson made his money out of recordings of Tubular Bells. Lulu made money out of songs.
Yes.
Shout being particularly good, as I remember.
Being the only one you can remember, yes.
And Gavin Davies is one
Chairman
of the judges
of
in the next Pop Idol.
Is the wrong answer, but well deduced.
Give us a clue.
Something to do with Lulu's best work. You might remember her for.
Freeman's Catalogue.
Yes.
Ah, Freeman's Catalogue. I wish I could dress like you, Lulu. And Richard Branson has. Yes, they've all been involved with mail catalogues apart from Le Pen, who has been involved with mail catalogues.
Is equally inaccurate, but it's in the right area. The answer is that they've all made money from mail order businesses.
Oh, well, I was nearly there.
So close, weren't
Apart
you?
from, apart from Le Pen.
No, Le Pen had.
Oh, you said Gavin Davies is the odd one out.
Is the right answer.
Yeah, right.
Except for Labour supporter Gavin Davies, who's... and why have we picked him?
Well, he's about to go into business on the NHS, isn't he, on some sort of online spin-off?
He's donated £10,000 to the Labour Party, and very shortly the NHS is going to be forced to buy all their supplies online, and he happens to have set up an internet company that sells just those things to the NHS.
You're awfully cynical, aren't you, Angus?
But you've set up an internet company, haven't you, Matthew?
I have, yeah.
How's it going?
It's Britain's #1.
What is it,
teenage
virtual
portal.
theatre reviewing? And who's it for?
Teenage girls. My specialist market.
So it's basically like Bunty on the internet, is it?
Teenage girls have moved on just a touch.
Right. The answer is that they've all made money from mail-order businesses except Labour supporter Gavin Davies. Friends of Mr Davies claim his investment in the internet company is purely altruistic and that his intention is to save the government money. And once he's saved enough government money, he'll probably put it into one of his high-interest accounts. Which public outrage means that at the end of this scam, it's Ian and Matthew who should be ashamed of themselves, trailing as they are 7-6. Our final round excitingly features the absence of various words, as found in a variety of headlines, including many, some or less, from this week's guest publication, the well-nigh essential Bingo Bugle. So stand by for what Air Miles go unused,
Osama bin Laden.
No.
8.
Hundreds of millions.
Millions and
55
millions and
million.
millions.
No, I'll give 1 to Paul, as he said 8, because it's 8 trillion. A spokesman for Air Miles said people tend to save them for special occasions, like when they happen to have a seat on the day that you want to go. Next, use your old bingo marker for what?
Drawing on windows, drawing on buses.
Oh, for filling in big black rectangles on bits of newspaper text.
It's a lovely idea, but no, removing bug splatters is obviously the
Obviously,
answer.
Yeah.
This is
Like a German spy in the war, bug splatters.
next, at last, Prescott gets his shark what?
Shark teeth.
Shark fun.
Shark
Yeah.
dip.
Shark dip is the right answer, yes. Well,
Yes.
jumped in.
I rather like the report where it said that there's a place where you can go swimming with sharks, and he was told about it by his friend Gordon Brown.
Yes, he has, John Prescott, finally fulfilled his ambition to swim with a shark. I have never seen such a big animal so close, said the shark. And finally, as long as there's bingo, there'll be what?
A job for you in old age.
There'll be bingo bugle.
It is from Bingo Bugle. Oddly enough, it's actually rows over seats. This is Dawn Draper, who writes to Bingo Bugle.
Does she?
Yes.
What's been bothering Dawn?
Well, I'll tell you. She says, I recall one woman thought a particular seat was hers. That ended when a woman who was sitting there picked up the chair, turned it over and said, I don't see your name on this seat, and sat back down. Bingo Bugle replied, thank you for your letter. Your story about the woman turning over the chair and checking for her name is hysterical. Which team efforts marked the end of tonight's selection nightmare, with this week's Andy Coles being Ian and Matthew with 8, whilst this week's Joe Coles are Paul and Mark with 10. So, a trip to Ann Summers to our winners, a trip to Ann Winterton's to our losers. And I leave you with news that in Leicester, word gets through that Bernard Manning's club has been burnt down again. At a fancy dress party in Chesterfield, there's embarrassment as everyone comes dressed as the cathedral. And at a cabinet lunch, David Blunkett is once again forced to blame the dog. Good night.